In today's history video, we'll go over the months of August and September 2018, covering the entire 250 million download celebration, what was probably Dokkan's original third year anniversary. The month of August started with a new legendary summon banner, featuring a new LR. LR physical cell was pretty much MVP 17's part 2 LR. He had a good leader skill for Super Battle Road, and AoE super attack that also recovered 10% HP, which as you would guess was insane in SBR. He then raised his attack by 30% on his 18 key for one turn, which was alright. He had 90% attack and defense at the start of turn, which was good for an LR, but then he gained 1 key and 10% attack per existing enemy. So this guy was pretty much built for SBR, and the World Tournament actually. He was for sure the best World Tournament killer since LR Strength Broly, but not as good as Broly obviously, since he didn't have 2 super attacks, and you could struggle to hit his 12 key super when facing too many enemies because of all the key he gained from his passive. His link set was also pretty cooked for a time. His best linking partner was his own TUR, with whom he shared 6 links, so if you were like a GOL, this was an insane rotation. Since his TUR also had an AoE super that recovered HP, like this was for sure one of the best SBR rotations in the game. So yeah, in SBR, Cell was an absolute beast. But against one enemy, he wasn't that impressive and could potentially struggle for key. Well, not on the Android team since it was overflowing with key support, but yeah, like on that team, Cell looked pretty good. The next day, it was already time for another World Tournament, the 25th World Tournament. It introduced a new Dokkan Awakening and 2 new World Tournament reward cards. The Dokkan Awakening of AGL Final Form Cooler was pretty good. You could cheese the Extreme AGL Sproro stage with his leader skill. Never seen anyone do it with him, but it was an option. He then greatly lowered defense on Super, which was alright, but what made him good was his support. He gave 40% attack and defense to AGL type allies. This was actually a pretty cracked support type buff for the time. He then launched an additional normal attack and had a high chance of launching another normal attack. All of that while getting 5% attack per attack performed, up to 50% attack. And that additional attack was calculated separately, for a total boost of 110% attack when fully built up. Still not anything crazy with his low free to play stats, but the Extreme AGL type had like 4 good units, so his support just couldn't be overlooked. As for the new World Tournament reward cards, Strength Great Saiyaman was also pretty good. He greatly raised his attack on Super for one turn, had a supreme damage multiplier as an SSR, gave Super class allies 2 key and 30% attack and defense, and debuffed Extreme class enemies defense by 50%. So yeah, that guy had an insane baseline passive, and his Awakening had the potential to be very good. But as an SSR with his low stats, you had to be careful bringing him into SBR, and probably had to build him full dodge. Physical Mighty Mask wasn't anything crazy. He raised his attack and defense by 30% for one turn on Super, had 80% attack and defense when facing only one enemy, but had 100% dodge for one turn once only when you drop below 40% HP. If it weren't for the one enemy part of his passive, this guy could have probably been a viable SBR card, but he basically had no passive in most SBR stages. Another day later, and they teased an upcoming Dragon Ball Super Broly movie campaign in the news, and the campaign was apparently going to come with a new Extreme Z battle against Broly. It actually got leaked 2 days later by iSeriously, and yeah, the EZA was for a new Broly, so people were speculating that he was going to be like a free to play unit with an EZA, just like the Strength Gohan from the 3rd year anniversary. The EZA also leaked the fact that Broly was an exiled Saiyan, which I guess kind of confirmed that they were going to keep that part of Z Broly's backstory. Not like the craziest leak, but I'm pretty sure it was still a leak nonetheless. They even left a link to the official Broly movie website, which we can access thanks to the Wayback Machine. Bro, so many memories. The hype for the Broly movie was just something else. 2 days later, and they teased update 3.14.0 in the news. A pretty significant update. It was going to add last deck clears, meaning that when you cleared an event, the team you used to clear the event was going to be saved as the last team you used to clear that event. It added the blue or rainbow indicator in the hidden potential system, showing you if you could unlock a unit's hidden potential system route, and it also added status effects icons in battle, meaning you could now see if you managed to stun an enemy as soon as they were hit by your super, or the other way around. I honestly completely forgot that this wasn't a thing before that update. Like bro, before you had to wait until the animations were finished to see if the enemy had been stunned or not, or like wait until your characters launched like a normal, or the enemy was attacking you with like a normal attack, and just hope that like it showed you the status on time. Crazy times, bro, crazy times. So yeah, this was an insane quality of life update. Another 2 days later, and it was time for the Broly movie campaign. It started with your typical Logan Winners campaign and missions, which were actually pretty decent. The next day, and the new EZA was out. It was just a raid boss EZA against Wrathful Broly. It didn't give any EZA medals, let alone like a new free play unit, but the rewards were pretty cracked. It gave 30 stones and pretty much enough potential orbs to rainbow a character of each type. From what I can remember, the EZA wasn't that difficult. Broly wasn't weak to any category, just the physical type. So if you had a good super physical team, you were good to go. The sad thing is that if you didn't beat the EZA in time, you weren't going to get a second chance to. Since I'm pretty sure the next time it came back, it was revamped to be the EZA for the actual new Wrathful Broly. 4 days later, an update 3.14.0 was out. On top of all the things we talked about earlier, it also added the owned item tabs to the menu during events. So it's thanks to this update that we can see all the items we own while in game. This update also expanded the number of initial character slots you got when you first started the game. So new players would now have 200 character slots instead of 20 at level 1, which was a pretty significant change. And obviously after the update, they had to give all old players 180 character slots. Literally like Truth's dream, like 180 character slots. That's just insane. The next day, they revamped Bardock's story event, which came with the awakening of the free-to-play R Bardock. He could now be Dokkan awakened into a Giant Ape Bardock, which was an alright free-to-play unit. He was a sub-leader for the Giant Form category, raised his attack by 30% on Super for 1 turn, had 50% attack and defense and a 10% chance of turning into a Giant Ape at the start of turn, as well as 50% attack when facing 2 or more enemies. Apparently this guy was hitting harder than his summonable counterpart when his full passive was active. So yeah, I guess he was good. The story event also came with awakenings for the summonable Bardock squad units who didn't have one yet. Agel Tora was probably the best awakening here. He lowered attack on super, gave 3 key and 30% attack to all allies, recovered 6% HP per giant form category units on the team, up to 18%, and had a 10% chance of turning into a giant ape at the start of turn. So this guy was an SVR beast with that support. Healing and attack debuff on super. He also shared 6 links with the free-to-play AGL Bardock, making the rotation pretty decent, something you could potentially bring into a monotype SVR stage. Interlord Shugesh still had flat stat buffs for some reason. He gave all allies 7000 attack and defense, plus an additional 2000 defense per giant form category around the team, up to 6000 defense, while also being able to turn into a giant ape at the start of turn. So he could give up to 7000 attack and 13,000 defense to all allies on rotation. So actually not that bad. Under a double 120% leader skill, that 13,000 defense was equal to about 54% defense. But yeah, he definitely still got shafted. Physical Burgos was so much better. He raised his attack by 50% on super for 3 turns, had 12% attack and defense per key spheres obtained, plus an additional 1% attack and defense up to 3% per giant form category ally on the team. So yeah, he was just stats, but had a decent amount of them. Also, him, Tora, and Shugesh counted as characters toward their passives, so you only needed 2 other giant form units to fully activate their passives. So Burgos always had at least 13% attack and defense per key spheres obtained, Tora always recovered at least 6% HP at the start of turn, and Shugesh always gave at least 9000 defense to all allies on rotation. They were also all featured on a new double rates banner, so I guess it wasn't hard to have multiple copies of them if you summoned on that banner, especially now that guaranteed SSRs were a thing. They also renewed the friend summon banner and introduced a new friend summon LR. LR Great Saiyaman 1 and 2 was a phenomenal LR. Their leader skill was actually pretty good for a fish play unit, especially if you kept one of them on each rotation since they gave 4 key to all allies. The crazy part is that this was like for sure the weakest part of that LR. They sealed the enemy super on their 12 key, which was just insane in SBR. They then raised superclass allies attack by 30% for 2 turns on their 18 key super, which was actually pretty good. And then they gave superclass allies 4 key and 50% defense at the start of turn, while also debuffing extreme class enemies defense by 70%. Like bro, these guys were just built for SBR. They were insane. With the utility and support they had, they were like must runs on all of their teams. The only problem of that LR was really how tedious it was to awaken them. You needed medals from the extermination plan events, and the drop rates of those medals were just so bad, but it was definitely worth it. They were a huge help on the Majin Buu Saga SBR stage, mainly because of their sealing. Like I said earlier, the strat in that stage was to just seal the enemies and counter with the Super Vegetos. And I guess it was also time for the countdown for the 200 $250 million celebration countdown that actually gave friend points to help players pull that new shiny LR. That countdown celebration also brought back the Porenga wishes. The only change here is that the first wish now gave 5 tickets you could use in the $250 million ticket summon banner. By looking at the countdown images, it was clear that the celebration was going to be themed around the Planet Namek saga. Well, it's not like we had to guess, because the leakers leaked literally everything. The whole celebration, all of the units, all of the kits, literally everything before the celebration even started. It was just crazy. Bro, literally a week before the countdown celebration even started, it was leaked by Kawhi that the part 2 LR of that celebration was going to be LR Goku and Frieza. The countdown celebration didn't even start yet, let alone the first part of the celebration, and they already knew who the part 2 LR was going to be. Like, bro, what? We didn't even know if that celebration was going to have a part 2. Let alone a part 2 LR. Like, that was just crazy. Like, people complaining about leaks nowadays have no idea how bad it actually was at the time. Personally, I don't really mind leaks. I even like them when it's like a little teaser about the upcoming Dokkan Fest, like I seriously does, especially when Dokkan fails to like communicate with us. Like, I like the type of leaks when we don't exactly know like what the unit kits will look like, you know, or if it's going to be like a transforming unit or not. Like the type of leaks when you have to guess a little bit. Like, they don't give you everything, they just say this is the character who's going to come out, and yeah, they stop it at that, you know. But leaking everything multiple weeks prior without any guessing work or anything, they just literally give you the whole kits, the whole everything. Yeah, that's maybe like a little bit too much, even for me. Like, that's just and the crazy part is, from what I've seen, people weren't really that mad. People were just hype, I guess, like literally. But nowadays it's like a huge drama, bro. It's leaks are just a huge thing nowadays, but back then it wasn't like that. But yeah, while waiting for the celebration, they put a notice in the news saying that a bug had been fixed, and if I understand it correctly, Physical Burgos didn't gain an additional 3% attack and defense per key spheres obtained when his team had 2 other giant form characters, but instead just gained a flat buff of 3% attack and defense at the start of turn. That's actually crazy. So this guy basically had no second part of his passive for like 6 days. A week straight, bro. That's crazy. The next day, and it was time for the $250 million celebration. The celebration started with a cool promo, just like with the 30-year anniversary. It then had your typical login bonus campaign and missions, the Godstones, and some new events and banners. They also held a little survey to get players' opinions on the game and what they could do to improve it. This survey gave 3 Dragonstones just like the last one, so not bad. The celebration also had 2 types of missions. The daily missions that you could do every day to get training items and awakening medals, which was cool. I actually remember those Elder Guys medals being pretty useful for me since I was still like a new player, and the actual missions gave a total of 26 stones. Nothing crazy, but this was because the celebration came with the launch event, an event that gave 10 stones and 30 incredible gems every day for 7 days. So it gave a total of 70 stones. Like, it wasn't as crazy as the previous download celebration Hercule missions, or at least that's what I thought, because yeah, they also held some daily missions that gave you an additional 10 stones every day for 7 days. So players were actually able to get 20 stones a day for 7 days, for a total of 140 dragon stones. Like, that's just crazy, bro. I remember that celebration giving out so many stones, but I didn't remember it being this crazy. And if that wasn't crazy enough, they brought back the ticket summon banner and gave players 1 ticket for every 50 dragon stones spent during the previous year. Like, for free, literally. And that banner was crazy. It featured pretty much every Dokkan Fest unit up to in Super Saiyan 3 Bardock. So it had some juggernauts like Inti Goku, Physical Super Vegito, Tech Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, and many more. Like, for a free banner, this was just so good. Like, even if it didn't have like guaranteed SSRs. I remember pulling some unfeatured LRs from that banner. Because yes, actually that banner had like unfeatured LRs. Like, I'm pretty sure I pulled my first copy of Int LR Super Saiyan 2 Gohan from that banner actually. So yeah, that was crazy. The celebration also came with a new story event where we could fully farm a new Piccolo. The event gave you his own potential orbs, just like the Fish Play Gohan. And the cool thing about that Piccolo is that he was a transforming unit. AGL Piccolo had 50% 20% attack and defense at the start of turn, gained an additional 1 key per rainbow key spheres obtained, and would assimilate with Nell starting from the 5th turn from the start of battle. Very sad this moment was used as a free-to-play unit. I think this could have easily been like a Dokkan Fest unit, but I guess his fusion with Kami was more worthy of a Dokkan Fest card. Anyways, transformed, he now raised his defense by 30% for 1 turn on super, recovered 20% HP once only, was now an orb changer, changing HL key spheres to rainbow, had 60% attack and defense at the start of turn, and gained 12% attack Tsuki and 15,000 HP per rainbow key spheres obtained. So he wasn't that great in base, but transformed, he was pretty damn good for a free-to-play unit. 2 days later, and they teased the upcoming dual Dokkan Fest units, which thanks to the leakers, we knew were a new transforming Goku and transforming Frieza. Damn leakers. They were both out the next day, and they were pretty crazy. Transforming Super Saiyan Goku led the Super Class type for 3 key and 120% HP attack and defense, which was literally just an unrestricted version of Tech Vegito Blue's leader skill, so definitely pretty good. Like that was actually a decent leader skill. The cool thing about this guy and Frieza that we'll cover in a second is that he would transform at every appearance starting from the 3rd turn from the start of battle up until his last transformation. Like this was just so cool on paper, until you realize that his kit barely changes between transformations, but his link set does drastically, so it could actually get pretty difficult to run him on some teams. The worst part was that there was basically no way for you to see his final transformation, since long events weren't really a thing yet. Honestly, I have no idea what they were thinking releasing him and Frieza at this time. These guys would have made more sense during the Legendary Goku event meta, not during the SBR meta. But yeah, Goku stacked attack and defense on super up until his last transformation, had 80% attack and defense at the start of turn, and 21% damage reduction. Honestly, this coupled with his defense stacking on super made him an insane tank in SBR. This guy was, in my opinion, a beast in SBR at the time. I used him whenever I could, which was a lot actually, because this guy had so many categories, because he literally transformed into almost every transformation of Goku. With every transformation, he gained 10% attack and 1% damage reduction at the cost of 20% defense. So by the time you got to Blue Goku, he had 120% attack and 25% damage reduction, but no start of turn defense. He also didn't stack on super anymore and just had a great chance of stunning the attacked enemy, which would have been great if this was his super attack effect in base. But on his last form, you were never going to see that in an event where enemies could be stunned. So it's like he had no super attack effect. I guess for his first appearance he had 12 key and guaranteed crit, which honestly wasn't even that crazy, but better than nothing. Honestly, the design of that unit was just so questionable. He was clearly built for longer events, but was low-key better in shorter events. I remember running him in his SSR form instead of his TOR in the Legendary Goku event, because he stacked defense permanently in base. So like, such a weird design. But the unit was obviously still extremely cool for the time. Like a multi-transforming Goku was just such a cool idea, such a cool concept. I just wish it had like been executed better. Imagine if every form had a completely different passive. Like in the first 3 forms, he had a passive like better for short events, and then his 2 other transformation are like better for longer events. Like, could have been cool. Tech Transferring Frieza had pretty much the exact same kit as Goku. Instead of leading super class units, he led extreme class units, and instead of damage reduction, he had healing. Since his link set was more consistent across his transformations, people saw him as slightly better than Goku from what I can remember. Honestly, I didn't really agree at the time. I still felt like Goku was much better. Damage reduction was just like 10 times better than healing. That Frieza couldn't tank anything in SBR. One super and you were pretty much dead. Not sure what they were thinking there. Nowadays it's pretty clear that it's night and day between him and Goku. But I think the fact that the Extreme Tech Neogas leader was just complete trash made Frieza look better than he actually was. Many players were finally able to beat like the Extreme Tech SBR stage thanks to this guy, or Super Saiyan Goku was easy. So yeah, you could say he was more valuable than Goku in some way. Also, is it just me, or do these guys look like they were originally supposed to be LRs? Like their card arts have the same type of shading as LR cards. What if those two were supposed to be the anniversary headliners that year? Honestly, it would have made more sense than like Vegito and Gogeta. Like, this would have been the perfect way to introduce the transferring mechanic into the game. And it would maybe also explain why the 3rd year anniversary was so dry. Maybe it's because they changed literally everything at the last second. Honestly, who knows, but I don't think it sounds too crazy of a theory. Those two guys also came with pretty good banner units. Physical Kaioken Goku greatly raised his attack on super for 1 turn, had 80% attack and defense at the start of turn, and gained 20% attack per attack received up to 120%, which was actually calculated separately for a total boost of 296% attack at the start of turn, when fully built up. In Dokkan events, that guy was actually just a beast, and you could honestly even run him in SBR with some dupes and items. But even though he was a Kaioken Goku, he didn't have over and a flash, which I guess makes sense since he didn't end the fight quickly against Frieza. As a matter of fact, he didn't even end the fight at all after using the Kaioken. Strength Final Form Frieza was, in my opinion, a much better unit. He had the same super attack effect as physical Kaioken Goku, and the same start of turn attack and defensive buff, but instead of having to get hit multiple times, he just had to get hit once to get his additional 100% attack buff, also calculated separately, for a total buff of 260% attack after brain attack. So this guy was just insane everywhere. He was doing so much damage pretty much for free. You just had to put him in slot 1. Like the damage this guy was dishing out, like the turn 1, it was just crazy at the time. It was actually crazy. Such a good card. As for their Dokkan events, yeah, they were actually pretty easy since they kept their type through all the phases, so you just needed a good monotype team. I remember pulling Transparent Goku with a dupe that I used to unlock the top left corner of his hidden potential route, because I just didn't know which path was the most optimal one. But yeah, I guess it could have been worse. I could have picked like the top right corner or like the bottom left corner. But yeah, anyways, it's not like it mattered because his Dokkan MS was just impossible for me to beat. I had no extreme class units, and I'm pretty sure I didn't even understand how leader skills worked at the time. So yeah, it was rough, but I do remember their banners being pretty good. Well, more so on JP. Goku's banner on JP featured Agel's % Blue Evolution Vegeta, Tech Vegeta Blue, Int UI Goku, Tech's % Goku, and Agel's % Blue Kaioken Goku. While on Global, Agel's % Blue Evolution Vegeta was replaced by Int Super Gogeta. Like, the banner was still insane, but Agel's % Blue Evolution Vegeta was just such a valuable unit that having him featured on the JP banner just made the banner like so much better. You have no idea, like so much better. They did the same thing for Frieza's banner. Instead of arguably the best extreme class unit at the time, HL Turles, Global had HL Super 17 instead. A card that was seen as like one of the worst Neo-Gods leader. Well, not anymore with SBR, but like outside of SBR, that guy was just not great. I remember Global players being very mad at this one, because unlike Agel's % Blue Evolution Vegeta, Agel Turles was actually out on Global. Sure, he came right before a $250 million celebration, but still, like, it wouldn't have been the first time that they brought back a unit like this fast. So yeah, the banners were pretty cracked on GP. The month ended with the Versus campaign, featuring some new trophy cards, a physical final from Frieza, and Strength % Goku. That Goku card art was pretty good. Sad that they used that on a trophy card. It could have easily been the card art of a Transformed Dokkan Fest TR, but whatever. JP lost, so they got the Frieza card. The next month started with some top grossing rewards, obviously, giving 50 stones to all players, which was pretty good. The next day, under free-to-play, Piccolo got an easy. They didn't give him much, but enough for him to probably be the best free-to-play TR in the game. He now raised his defense by 30% for one turn on Super and base, had 60% attack and defense instead of 50, and gained 12% attack and 2 keep Rainbow Key Spheres obtained instead of 10% attack and 1 key. Then transformed, he now recovered 30% HP instead of 20%, had 70% attack and defense at the start of turn instead of 60, and now gained 15% attack, 3 key, and 18,000 HP per Rainbow Key Spheres obtained, instead of the previous 12% attack, 2 key, and 15,000 HP. So yeah, that guy was just an insane easy and could easily launch 1 million plus super attacks, which was kind of the bar at the time for a good unit. Like, if you could launch 1 million attack stats, you were deemed as good enough as a unit. 2 days later, and they dropped some sort of Frieza social media campaign where players had to beat Frieza's challenges for some rewards. The first one was to just like or retweet their social media posts 53,000 times. Like, just look at that. If you really mean to beat me, you'll like this 53,000 times. Ho ho ho. If you can, that is. Like, bro, they had no shame using Frieza for social media engagement. But yeah, whatever, the rewards were good. It gave tons of tickets and even Elder Kais and potential orbs. They also added a new wish to the Pornga wishes, a wish that you could do only once, and that gave you a Godstone. So if I'm not mistaken, this was the second time since the 2nd year anniversary where they gave like 2 Godstones. And the pool of characters was much better now that easies were a thing. Like, all of the OG 5 5 easies were good picks. I don't remember who I picked up exactly, but it was either Super Sentry Vegeta, simply because he looked cool, or maybe I did some research and actually picked Int Ultimate Gohan because of how easy it was to super with him post EZA, but honestly I don't remember, but it was definitely between those two. A week later, and it was time for the second part of the $250 million celebration. It had another promo video, which made it clear that the leaks were indeed correct. And that the part 2 LR was going to be a new LR Goku and Frieza. The second part of the celebration also came with some new events and missions. One of those new events was another raid boss EZ against full power Jiren. The raid itself didn't give stones, just a decent amount of potential orbs, training items, and 50 dozen Kais, but this raid boss came with its own campaign where each first time clear of the event across all players would reduce Jiren's HP. So it's like each clear did damage to him, so like the less HP he had, the more stones they gave. That whole thing gave 25 stones, so almost as many stones as a regular EZA. The challenge missions were also back, given 10 stones every day for 7 days, so another free 70 dragon stones. As for the part 2 missions, they gave 29 stones and a copy of the Battlefield SR Ginyu. No idea why, but I still have that copy with me. They also dropped a new story event with another fully farmable fish play unit. Physical Kid Trunks, Goten, and Maron was an okay fish play unit. They had Buhan's gimmick super attack effect, where it had a 30% chance of being stronger. They then had 100% attack and defense at the start of turn, which honestly sounded pretty good, but then they lost 5% of it every turn up to 50%, and their link set was complete garbage. Well, they did share 4 links with LR, Goten, and Trunks, but their stats were just too low, so it wasn't worth running them. The next day, and the new LR was out. LR, Goku, and Frieza were literally the best unit in the game, and like by far. Like it wasn't even close. They had the best leader skill in the game, leading the representative of Universe 7 category for Tricky and 177% HP attack and defense. Like bro, what? Like 177% just out of nowhere. Like we still didn't have a unit that was leading a category for 170% across all stats, and these guys just came in and it was 177%. Like this was just crazy. And sure, the category was limited, but it had some of the best units in the game, like Int UI Goku, Ageless % Blue Evolution Vegeta, or even like Physical MVP 17, and that category was just going to get better with time, so this was just insane. They also were a sub-leader for the tech type, which was also insane because their best linked partner was the mono support Tech Tian, who they shared 3 links with. They then lowered attack on both their 12 and 18 super attacks, which was just insane in SBR. But what was even crazier was their passive. They had 77% attack and defense on super, an additional 77% attack when they supered at 18 key, and another 77% attack when the targeted enemy had his attack lowered. Something that not only were they doing themselves, but their best linked partner Tech Tian was also doing, on top of having over and a flash with them, and on top of the insane 3 key and 40% attack and defense super type buff he gave them. So yeah, alone they could potentially get up to 231% attack, and since that buff was on super, it was actually calculated separately from Tech Tian's start of turn super type buff, meaning next to Tian they had 363% attack on super. Like bro, that was just insane. Like these guys were hitting so damn hard for free. And when I say for free, it was really for free, because the thing is that this was before the link level update, and they had over and a flash. So that meant that in the middle slot, they could proc over and a flash 2 times, giving them 6 key. Because yes, before the link level update, key links could proc up to 2 times within the turn. So yeah, when I tell you their damage was free, it was actually free for real. Like these guys were just insane. And bro, their super attack animations were just so far and away better than the rest of the game, especially their 18 key. It looked like it was taken straight from the anime. Like I know nowadays every super attack looks like it's been taken straight from the anime, but back then this was a first, so this was just huge. But yeah, their banner was a legendary summon banner with 12 featured units, but I guess they were so good that honestly it didn't matter. It was probably worth summoning for them. I know that I didn't because I didn't understand anything about the game back then. I was just summoning for characters that I liked, but if you were someone who understood the game, this was a no-brainer. Like they were just so good. Oh, and yeah, they also had a rerun of all of the monotype banners during the celebration, just like during the 3rd year anniversary. So if you had pulled LR Goku and Frieza, it was definitely worth it to summon on Tech type banner in hope of getting a copy of Tech TN. Like that rotation was, I'm pretty sure, the best rotation in the game. Like it was crazy. 3 days later, and they held some sort of Kinky Kids Twitter campaign. No idea who they are. I think it's like some sort of music group in Japan, I don't know. But it gave stones, so it was good. The next day and the game got top grossing again, of course. So another 50 stones to every player. But the crazy part is that they gave every player another 50 stones 2 days later as additional rewards for the Journey Raid boss campaign. Just absolute craziness. Like that celebration gave so many stones. The month ended with a new event, and if it weren't for the world tournament, this would have definitely been the worst event in Dokkan history. Like I genuinely to this day don't know what they were thinking with those first 3 stages. You had to do 77 million damage with a single attack to one of the punching bags. 77 million damage, bro. And you weren't allowed to use items. Like people made some calculations, and the only 2 units who were able to clear that event at the time were Int LR to Gohan and LR Goku and Frieza. But not at 55%, bro. Nah, that would have been too easy, you know? You had to have at least 1 dupe in them and some absolutely insane mind-boggling RNG. Like honestly, you had a better chance of probably like Rainbow and LR Goku and Frieza in a multi than to beat that event. That's just how much RNG was required for you to hit that. Because not only did you need the perfect rotations, you needed a full board of same type key spheres, so 23 key spheres, and to crit. Like bro, what? Like just getting a full board of key spheres was almost like impossible in that event. So just doing that was not enough. But you also needed the perfect rotation. And not only did you need the perfect rotation, you had to pray for a crit. Like, bro, this is just too much. And you had no control over your rotations. So most of the time you were stuck with your nuker in the 7th slot, when the event only had 2 turns and could only be attempted 3 times every day. Like this was a joke. And that's probably why the rewards were so good. The first stage gave a total of 70 million Zeni, the second stage enough orbs for you to rainbow a unit and a half of each type, and the third stage a total of 62 Dragon Stones. Honestly, I'm not even ashamed of using the airplane bug to beat that event. That event was horrible. Even with the 10th year anniversary power creep, that event is still BS. Like I've tried it recently and it took me like I don't know how many attempts to hit that 77 million damage mark, when units are hidden a billion times harder than back in 2018. So yeah, just a terrible event.